Have you noticed how some people effortlessly attract others? It's not their looks, it's not their money, it's something much deeper, something few know about and even fewer master. And today, you're going to discover exactly how it works. Imagine for a moment having the ability to generate magnetic desire in others, not through cheap tricks or manipulation, but through a presence so powerful that people simply can't help but feel drawn to you. Sounds impossible, right? Well, get ready, because what you're about to learn will completely transform how you connect with others. The secret that very few understand is that true desire isn't generated by pursuing, but by strategically withdrawing. Neil Strauss discovered this after years of studying the most effective social dynamics. The paradox of desire, as he called it, is that what we chase tends to move away, while what we withdraw from tends to come closer. Think about it. When someone is completely available to you all the time, don't you feel their value diminishing? Not because they're objectively less valuable, but because that's how our psychology works. What's scarce is perceived as valuable. What's abundant is taken for granted. And here's the first major revelation. Your excessive availability is killing your attractiveness. Every time you immediately respond to a message, every time you cancel your plans to see someone, every time you show you'd be willing to give everything without receiving anything in return, you're unconsciously communicating that your time and energy are worth less than the other person's. Has it ever happened to you that someone who seemed very interested suddenly turned cold when you started showing interest? Or that the more you pursued someone, the more they pulled away? It's not a coincidence. It's the psychological law of desire in action. Now I want you to do something. Close your eyes for a moment, if you're not driving, of course, and think about the last time you felt really attracted to someone. Was that person totally available to you? Or was there some mystery, some distance that made you want to get closer? The answer is usually the latter. A simple exercise you can start today. Practice what Neil Strauss calls strategic withdrawal. The next time someone texts you, wait at least twice as long as they took to respond before answering. If you typically cancel your plans when someone invites you out last minute, start saying, "I can't today, maybe next week." Watch how the dynamic changes. And above all, notice how you feel when you regain control over your time and availability. Repeat this mantra: my time is valuable, my attention is a gift, not a right. Because when you genuinely start believing this, others will believe it too. And this is precisely what we'll talk about in the next crucial point that Neil Strauss discovered in his research. Unavailability isn't just physical, but emotional too. And here's the second major revelation that will forever change your ability to generate desire. Selective vulnerability is much more powerful than constant vulnerability. We live in an era where we're told we should be completely open, that we should show all our emotions, share all our thoughts. But Neil Strauss identified that the most magnetic people are those who dose their vulnerability as if it were a precious treasure. Not because they're playing games, but because they understand the value of gradual depth. Think about the best movies you've seen. Do they reveal everything in the first 5 minutes? No. They give you small clues, make you work for answers, keep you on the edge of your seat, wanting more. Human relationships work similarly. Overexposure kills mystery, and without mystery there is no desire, Strauss said. When you tell your entire life story on the first date, when you express every thought that crosses your mind, when you leave nothing to be discovered, you're eliminating one of the most powerful components of attraction: curiosity. Have you wondered why some people seem to become less interesting the more time you spend with them, while others become more fascinating? The difference lies in how much they reveal and when they do it. People who keep certain aspects of themselves in reserve create a magnetic effect, like a book you can't stop reading because each chapter reveals something new and unexpected. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you're in a deep conversation with someone you're interested in, practice what Strauss calls the incomplete revelation. Share something personal, something true, but stop just before the climax of the story. Let the other person ask for more details. Show interest in knowing the rest. If they don't, you've learned something valuable about their level of interest. If they do, You've created a bridge of curiosity that strengthens the connection. But be careful. This doesn't mean being fake or calculating. Authenticity is fundamental. It's simply understanding that not everyone has earned the right to know your most intimate chapters from the first moment. As Strauss said, true intimacy is earned, not given away. Have you noticed how you feel when someone tells you everything about their life within the first 15 minutes of meeting you? Isn't there a certain discomfort, a feeling that something isn't right in the pace of the revelation? That's your intuition telling you that vulnerability has an appropriate time and context. Repeat after me. I will reveal my truth gradually, honoring each layer of my being as the treasure it is. When you internalize this principle, something magical happens. People start to value each of your revelations as a special gift, not as a right. And this leads us directly to the third fundamental principle of the psychology of desire. The energy you project determines the response you receive. Seems simple, right? But Neil Strauss discovered that there's a specific form of energy that acts as an irresistible magnet for others, the energy of abundance. The most desired people aren't the most desperate to be desired. They're those who live in a state of psychological abundance. When you know you have options, that your value doesn't depend on validation from a specific person, you emit a completely different frequency. And others feel it, perceive it, even if they can't explain it rationally. Abundance isn't about having multiple partners, Strauss clarified. It's about having a healthy relationship with yourself first. When you emotionally depend on others' responses, when your mood changes depending on how quickly someone replies to a message, when you feel devastated by rejection, you're operating from scarcity, and scarcity repels. Think about the most charismatic people you know. Don't they all share a sense of being complete in themselves? Don't they all have a certain aura of I'm fine with you, I'm fine without you? It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's knowing that although you may desire someone in your life, you don't need them to be complete. A transformative exercise you can do right now is what Strauss called the abundance inventory. Take a piece of paper and write down all sources of value, connection, and joy in your life that don't depend on the person you want to attract. Your friendships, your family, your passions, your talents, your achievements, your dreams. Review this list every morning for a week. Genuinely feel the abundance that already exists in your life. Have you noticed that when you're having a good time in your life, when you're focused on your projects, when you feel good about yourself, that's precisely when more people seem to take an interest in you? It's no coincidence. It's because you're projecting abundance, not need. A powerful mantra to internalize this concept. I desire connection, but don't depend on it for my happiness. When you live from this place, something extraordinary happens. The chase reverses. It's no longer you chasing desire, but desire chasing you. And this connects us perfectly with the fourth principle that Neil Strauss discovered about the deep psychology of desire, the power of conscious silence. In a world where everyone competes to speak, to be heard, to get attention, strategic silence becomes an unparalleled tool of attraction. Not the passive silence of someone who has nothing to say, but the active, controlled silence of someone who knows when to be quiet. Strauss discovered this by studying history's great seducers. They all shared this quality. They knew how to use silence as a canvas where others projected their desires. In silence, he said, we create space for the other to wonder about us. And that question, that curiosity, is the seed of desire. Have you ever been with someone who talks non-stop, who fills every moment of silence with words, who seems to fear empty spaces in conversation? And have you noticed how that need to fill space diminishes their appeal? When you constantly talk, you're revealing two things: insecurity and need for approval. By contrast, the person who's comfortable in silence, who can hold a gaze without words, who knows how to listen deeply, emits a powerful signal: confidence. And few things are as magnetically attractive as a person who's sure of themselves. The practical exercise here is what Strauss called the powerful pause. In your next important conversation, every time you're asked a question, especially a deep or personal one, breathe. Take 2 full seconds before responding. It seems like a short time, but in the dynamic of a conversation, those 2 seconds create a magnetic space. You communicate that you're genuinely considering the question, not just waiting for your turn to speak. And something more, you communicate that you're not afraid of silence, that you're comfortable in your own skin. Have you noticed how the most influential people speak more slowly, make more pauses, use silence as a tool? It's no coincidence. They've discovered that when you speak less, but with more intention, each of your words carries more weight. Repeat this mantra. In my silence lies my power. Because when you stop filling every space with words, you create the perfect context for curiosity, intrigue, and finally, desire to flourish. And this leads us to the 5th and deepest principle of the psychology of desire. Conscious polarity is the secret engine of lasting desire. This is perhaps Neil Strauss's most revolutionary discovery and the least understood by most. Authentic attraction doesn't flourish in complete similarity, but in the creative tension between complementary poles. Desire, Strauss explained, requires a certain dose of tension to stay alive. Without polarity, without some creative friction, attraction dissolves into comfort. And while comfort is pleasant, it rarely generates passion. Think about it. The most magnetic relationships you've observed, the ones that seem to keep the spark year after year, don't they contain some element of mystery? Some dance between approach and distance, between the known and the yet-to-be discovered? This isn't a toxic polarity based on drama or insecurity. It's a conscious polarity, chosen, that honors differences instead of fearing them. Most people, in their desire to please, try to eliminate all difference, all friction. They become mirrors, reflecting exactly what they believe the other wants to see. And while this may work briefly, it soon leads to a loss of respect and eventually desire. The transformative exercise here is what Strauss called polarizing authenticity. Identify a genuine opinion you hold, something you deeply believe in, even if it's not popular or universally accepted. The next time you're in a conversation where that topic arises, express your truth without apology, without aggression, but also without diluting it to make it more acceptable. It's not about being confrontational, but about being real, about showing that you have convictions, that you don't change your essence to momentarily please. Paradoxically, this authenticity, though it may create some initial friction, generates deep respect. And without respect, there is no lasting desire. Have you noticed how relationships that begin with both people trying to impress each other, hiding their true thoughts, pretending to be perfect, inevitably collapse when the masks fall? Conscious polarity is the alternative, showing your true self from the beginning, allowing whoever is drawn to you to be attracted by who you really are, not by a fabricated version. A powerful mantra to integrate this principle. My authenticity is magnetic, even when it creates distance. Because the truth is that you're not here to attract everyone. You're here to attract the right ones, deeply, authentically. And here's the final truth that unites all these principles. The most powerful desire isn't generated by manipulating others, but by transforming yourself. When you practice strategic unavailability, selective vulnerability, the abundance mindset, conscious silence, and authentic polarity, you're not playing games. You're becoming a more centered, more powerful, more magnetic version of yourself. Neil Strauss arrived at this conclusion after years of studying the dynamics of desire. At first, like many, he sought techniques, lines, strategies he could apply externally. Over time, he discovered that the real game is won internally. It's not about what you do, but who you are. The final secret, he wrote, is that there is no secret. Authentic desire is a natural response to a person who has done the inner work of becoming desirable, not for what they do, but for how they exist in the world. What does this mean for you? It means that every time you work on your self-confidence, every time you honor your own boundaries, every time you choose authenticity over approval, you're not just improving your life, you're magnetically increasing your attractiveness. The next time you find yourself desperately trying to impress someone, stop. Breathe. Remember these principles. Ask yourself, am I acting from my center or from my need? Because need repels, while centeredness attracts. The question isn't how can I make this person desire me, but how can I become someone naturally desirable by being more myself, not less? Because here's the final and most beautiful paradox. When you stop chasing others' desire and focus on desiring your own life, on loving your own path, on honoring your own truth, you become magnetically attractive without effort. So I ask you, are you ready to leave behind superficial games and embrace the deep principles that generate authentic and lasting desire? Are you willing to do the inner work that will turn you not into someone who seeks approval, but into someone who naturally inspires it? This is the road less traveled. It's harder than learning a few lines or techniques. It requires self-awareness, courage, willingness to face your own fears and insecurities. But the results don't just transform your romantic relationships, they transform your entire existence. Because when you become someone who doesn't need to chase, you become someone others naturally chase. When you stop begging for attention, you start attracting it effortlessly. When you stop fearing loneliness, paradoxically, you're rarely alone. Neil Strauss discovered this after years of research. The psychology of desire isn't about external techniques, but about internal transformation. It's not about what you say, but how you live. It's not about impressing, but inspiring. So I invite you to start today. Implement one of these principles this week. Observe what changes. Notice how your interactions transform. Pay attention to how you yourself feel as you reclaim your power. And remember, true success isn't measured by how many people you can momentarily attract, but by the quality of connections you can authentically maintain. Because in the end, transient desire is common. Lasting desire, based on mutual respect and genuine admiration, is extraordinary. If this message resonated with you, if you felt that spark of recognition that says, "This is truth," write in the comments, "I choose my authenticity." Let's see how many are ready for this deeper level of understanding. And if you want to keep delving into these principles, into how the psychology of desire can transform not just your romantic relationships, but all your human interactions, make sure to subscribe to this channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video with someone you think needs to hear it. Because the true psychology of desire isn't a secret that should be kept, but a truth that should be shared. A truth that has the power to transform not just how you relate to others, but how you relate to yourself. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful transformation of all.